You are being defrauded by a system that hates families. One that wants your wife outside of the home and not raising your kids, so your kids are sent to a public school indoctrination center where they're turned into Marxist drones that are gonna go and do their social activist bidding. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Red Top Report. I'm your host, Joe Enders, and today we're going to be talking about sins. But not just sins, Ronan. Sins that, and you can finish my sentence,
that cry out to heaven for vengeance.
Yeah, that's right, guys. We're talking about the worst of the worst, the mortalist of the mortal sins. We're talking about the ones that, and this is in the Catechism of Pope St. Pius X. You can actually put it up. We're going to talk about each one of these things. Here is Pope St. Pius X. This is his catechism, right, Ronan?
That's correct. I believe it's 1880.
1880.
Yep.
1880. Are you sure about that?
Pretty sure.
When I'm right, I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I could have been right. So I'm still right because I could have been wrong.
So the sins that are said to cry out to God for vengeance are these four. The first one, willful murder. I think this one's probably pretty self-explanatory. I think most people do agree that murder is the worst of all the sins. And if anybody doesn't believe that sins are in a hierarchy, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? Like to say that telling a white lie is equal to murdering somebody. I mean, that's completely ridiculous. All sin exists in a hierarchy. Even the sin of murder itself exists in a hierarchy. I think it was Matt Fratto made that point when he was talking to Dennis Prager. He'd said that patricide is a worse form of murder than murdering a random person.
Even within murder, patricide would be a graver sin than killing a stranger.
Infanticide, I would argue, is worse as well. You know, there's all sorts of different types of murder, and it's all ordered in a hierarchy. Now, I think that this does apply a little bit to today's culture because obviously we have abortion, we have in vitro fertilization, we have euthanasia. These are all questions on whether or not it is okay in certain instances to take an innocent human life. And obviously the answer to that question is no, you do not have the right to take away an innocent human life. That is not something that is guaranteed. And before anybody goes up and says, oh, but what about those brain dead people? What about all those things? What about pulling the plug on people? What about doing any of those things? Taking away the extraordinary measures of keeping somebody alive is not necessarily the same thing as taking that innocent human life. In the act of an abortion, which is a great example of this, people talk about ectopic pregnancies as an example. And that's not somebody who's brain dead, but that is a baby, that is an egg that is growing within the fallopian tube of a woman, which means she'll die if it's not taken out. So, you know, what you do is you remove the baby from the mother, but you do not take part in the act of killing it. If it dies in the act of you saving the mother's life, that is an incidental. That is that's an accidental. That was not on purpose. It wasn't meant. There was no taking of innocent human life. And a similar standard can be applied in the case of pulling the plug on somebody. Well, look, there's these extraordinary measures. It doesn't seem that this person could ever possibly wake up from this. And you have the right to not use those extraordinary measures, and as an accidental of that, you will die. That person will die, but you didn't kill them. They were going to die. So that's sort of how Catholic teaching kind of differentiates a little bit between the two. But yeah, so I mean, you can't kill people. You can't kill innocent people. You can't murder people. That's exactly what he's saying. And this is a serious sin, dude. This is a serious sin. So we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is this sin of sodomy. It just pops out on the list. You have the other ones up there, but this is like this doesn't seem like it would be something that's on here, but there's a very good reason that it is. And the reason that it's on there is because as we were talking about in the Bryson interview, the baseball bat analogy that I made, it's the equivalent of taking something sacred. Now, pretend the baseball bat is sacred. Let's say, it was St. Babe Ruth's baseball bat or something like that, and that bat was used to hit baseballs, and every baseball that hit was blessed, and anybody that caught it in the crowd, anybody who caught it in the crowd was miraculously healed of all physical ailments that they had. Let's use that as an example. It's the equivalent of taking this sacred bat that is miraculous and shoving it up your butt and sodomizing yourself with it. When you think about it from that perspective, it is actually a serious sin. It actually does cry out to heaven for vengeance. You're taking something that was literally designed and created by God to unify a husband and wife for the primary purpose of procreation, participating in the act of creation with God. It is a triune, it's a triune relationship. You have God on top, you have the husband below him, you have the wife below him, and the children below both of them. It's a beautiful hierarchy. It's meant to create the building unit of society, which is and always has been the family, not the individual. Now, this is why I think gay marriage is so acceptable in the society that we're currently living in right now. And Ronan, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this seems pretty obvious to me. It's that we focus on the individual. So it no longer becomes about the well-being of the family that we gear our lifestyles, our thoughts, our aspirations towards. We don't view it that way. We view it towards personal, individual aspirations. How do I make myself happy? How do I do all of those things? And when you calculate your aspirations, when you calculate your life's path using that metric as the individual being the building block of civilization, you wind up in a place where it's kind of like, well, I mean, it's just guys having sex with guys. Who really cares? They're just kind of doing what they want to be happy. What do you think?
Definitely. I mean, although the me, I'm an individual, there's no family, there's nothing else. And this is like what feminism brought too. All the different waves are all bad. There's no Christian feminism, as we like to say. Yeah. But which totally just wrecked the family and the whole idea of like a family unit and everything else to an individualized society.
I mean, you can note it too. I mean, and you could actually like make a graphic of like just the descent, just how we've descended into chaos, individual chaos. I mean, it all starts with Martin Luther, hammering the 95 theses, 95, 96, whatever it is, 95 theses to the churches, and saying, oh, Christian teaching, right here is something, oh, well, maybe we need to reimagine it. Maybe we need to understand it differently. Well, then we moved on to, well, maybe we need to reimagine what the actual building block of society is. It's actually not the family, it's actually the individual. And then we move on to say, well, maybe we should abstract what we think about marriage. Maybe it's gay people that should be able to get married. Maybe sodomy is actually sex. Maybe sodomy is a loving act between two people. And then we move to, well, really, does any truth at all really matter? I mean, is there any truth? Can we just believe anything that we want? And that's called postmodernism. So, I mean, you have this thread, this downward thread of all drawing from this idea that individuals are more powerful than hierarchical authorities, and that hierarchical authority starts with God, and it also goes all the way through the family. It goes through the church, down to the family, down to the children. I mean, it's real, guys. And yes, individuals exist. Yes, individuals have rights. Absolutely, they have rights. I agree with the Declaration of Independence that says we have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But liberty, obviously, the way I understand it, the way any American should understand it, is an ordered liberty. Throw a picture of this guy. Edmund Burke is the one who came up with that idea. And you need to order, the liberty that you have needs to be ordered towards creating a good and well-functioning society. It's not the same thing as license, which just basically allows you to do anything that you want for any reason. It's very damaging to society when you do that. It's essentially, anarchy. But going back to the sodomy question, it's all tied into that one specific thing. And it's this individualism, this I want what I want, me, I don't care about what sex is supposed to be used for. And you're taking that sacred thing, which are your genitals, and using them inappropriately in a way that desecrates the purpose that it has. It is a very serious sin, and it should be taken very seriously. That's why gay marriage is not real. That's why gay sex is not real. That's why homosexual pride is prideful. It's prideful, meaning above, putting yourself above God. It's a very serious sin, very similar to the sin the devil committed against God.
So I have a question for you, Joe.
Yeah, what's up?
So what do you think is worse, the actual act of sodomy, or Catholics, Christians, Protestants, but Catholics included, there are some out there, who would probably go as far as to say that the act of sodomy glorifies God?
Oh, well, I mean, that just tacks on more to the already deadly sin, the deadly sin of sodomy, the sin that cries out to heaven for vengeance. That just piles on blasphemy to that. I mean, good grief. I mean, and it's already blasphemous. That's the funny part about it. A lot of people don't get this. Desecrating anything sacred is blasphemous. Offending God is blasphemous. So you look at all that, you're just blaspheming upon blaspheming upon blaspheming upon blaspheming. Yeah, dude, God should not be happy with you. You better repent, because there is a deep circle of hell waiting for you if you don't. So let's go on to the next one. Is that enough on sodomy? You got anything?
I think that's enough on sodomy. I think you probably hammered the point in pretty good.
I think I did too. Maybe. There we go. Okay, the next one. The oppression of the poor. Aha, the Marxists love this one, but they don't actually understand it. So when it comes to the oppression of the poor, you have to look at it kind of more as a big picture, right? You have people in society. Boy, I need some water or something. I'm dying here. Anyways, they're suffering. They're already suffering. When you try to make things worse for them, when you bring the hammer down on them, when you make the downtrodden more downtrodden than they already are, for your own personal benefits, for your own personal gains, for your own personal aspirations, for anything else outside of the fact that there is literally nothing else that you can do as an individual, by the way. We're not talking about governments. We're not talking about societies. We're not even talking about family. When you look at it from that perspective, you need to be doing if it's all out of your power, it's only then that you can sit by and say, this is not an injustice. This is not something that I shouldn't do about this. Of course we're supposed to care about the poor. Of course we're supposed to care about the poor. We're supposed to help the poor. We're supposed to, we're supposed to help our brothers when they're in need. If there's somebody at your work who has trouble paying his bills, man, help him out. You're a Christian. You're supposed to do that. When somebody is unable to, maybe buy a house, let's start a charity for them. Let's crowdfund. We have these great online abilities to help people that actually do need it, people that deserve things. And that kind of feeds into the next aspect of all this. But before I go into that, I just want to comment on Marxism real quick. Marxism claims that it is about ending the oppression of the poor. But all it does is put the poor in the position of power to make sure everybody stays equally poor and equally miserable outside of them. The people that rose to power, the people that still have to, get to live in those big, beautiful Soviet Union presidential palaces. The entire purpose of Marxism is to create a new man over time, the communist man. And they believe every single person is capable of being transformed into the communist man, given enough time passes. And that time in between the coming of the communist man, which is pure communism, where everybody just works for the greater good of everybody else and everybody lives exactly according to their needs. I mean, good grief, it kind of sounds like heaven, doesn't it? Not real, guys. It's not real. And here's this is why they reject God as well. There's no hierarchy, which is not like heaven. So you put all that together, but that all needs to be cultivated. That all needs to be built. There needs to be like a re-education of the people. And that re-education of the people has to happen through this thing called the dictatorship of the proletariat. You can read it. It's in Das Kapital by Karl Marx. Have a field day, because what you're realizing is that what he's doing is just simply switching the elites who are in power, and those elites that get into power will never relinquish that power, and they will stay in power forever. There will be no communist man, because human nature, fallen human nature, let me clarify that, fallen human nature is prideful and it's greedy. People don't get rid of power, guys. So anyways, let's move on to the next part. So this is another interesting one. This is another one that I'm sure the Marxists would love to latch onto. This is called defrauding laborers of their wages. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so I mean, there's going to be like probably 50 millennials that are going to be, and Zoomers in the comments that are going to be like, and by the way, millennial, Zoomer, Ronan over there. Yeah, we're part of it. I know we're going to do some boomer complaining right now, but there is a little bit of truth to this. Look, you're not owed a job at Google with a beanbag chair, mandatory 3-hour nap times in the middle of the day and lunch like that. You're not being defrauded. You're not being oppressed by being told you have to work for 8 hours for 5 days a week. That's not really defrauding you. You're being paid for the work that you're doing. Now, there is, though, a deeper question, and now we're coming for you, boomers. That's right. We're coming for you, boomers. And Gen Xers, to be honest. They're kind of making their way up to the top as the boomers kind of fade away over time. There's this idea that you need to make people suffer, to not make money, to not be able to live a reasonable life. That's when you start hurting people, especially when the work that they do, is worth more. That's what Pope Pius is saying here. Can you put it up again for everybody to see right now? Defrauding laborers of their wages, meaning they've earned this and you're not giving it to them. That is thievery. That cries out to heaven for vengeance, because when a person does what they are supposed to do, what they've earned, what they've put their blood, their sweat, and their tears into, they're owed what you're supposed to give them. And if you don't give that to them, you're defrauding them. And God is extremely displeased with such injustices, as he should be. You ask yourself, if you have employees, and if there's any business owners watching this, I highly recommend you listen to this. You need to take care of them. If they have a family, you need to provide a wage that allows their wife to stay at home, that allows them to raise a stable, sturdy, big family. You have to think of things in those terms. The growth of your company should depend on the quality of life that you provide to your employees. If you can't afford to do those things, then you need to have less employees and your business does not need to grow as fast. You are a Christian business owner. You don't outsource your stuff to China either, where child laborers get to, wander all over the wilderness, wander all over these factories and put together the cheap products that you need. We can't allow civilization to work like this. We can't allow the defrauding of workers. And it's happening on a wide scale, guys. I'm talking globally. It's not just in the United States. It's this gigantic problem. I'm talking about billions of people in China are subject to this, subject to being defrauded of their wages, working, 50, 60 hours a week and not even making enough to make ends meet. Not even making enough to eat. That's awful. God hates that. Now, God also hates that families cannot afford to stay together in the United States. He hates that our economy has been literally built to have the wife and the husband out working. This all happened with second wave feminism, and boy, those business owners were shrewd for going along with it and pushing it, and as were the Marxists and the government, because what it basically did was say, yeah, you're going to have double the workforce that you had before now, so you can pay people half as much. And yeah, guys, you can look at real wages. They've been declining. Put up the graphic. Real wages have been declining in this country, especially when you adjust for inflation. And they've been stagnant as well. And what happens when you have stagnant wages and increasing inflation? You are making less money. That's what that means. You are being defrauded by a system that hates families. One that wants your wife outside of the home, not raising your kids, so your kids are sent to a public school indoctrination center where they're turned into Marxist drones that are going to go and do their social activist bidding. Drones. Have you ever thought about what a public school is? It's basically just a prison where they teach you things. And then you're allowed out of prison at the end of the day to go back home to your parents. You're taught to be obedient. You're taught to follow orders. You're taught to follow the social agenda that they're doing. And you can put up a whole compilation of the LGBT BS that they're teaching to everybody at schools right now to prove it. Defrauding workers is evil. Defrauding workers harms families. Financial hardships is one of the top reasons that there's a divorce in this country. So if you're a business owner, you need to start thinking about taking care of your employees and treating them like they are people deserving of a family and make them capable of raising and cultivating one, especially if the labor that they're doing is valuable. If that labor is valuable, they deserve it. I don't know. You got anything to add to that, Ronan?
No, man, I think you covered it all.
Well, you know what, guys? I think that's really all we're going to have for this episode. Guys, do not commit sins that cry to heaven for vengeance. You will find yourself in the pits of hell, and I don't want to see any of you guys in there. I love everybody that watches Red Top Report. I want you to get married and have giant families. I want you to love your country. I don't want you to be ashamed of the system that you're living under. It's up to everyone that watches this show. It's up to everybody in this country to make this a better place, a place without these awful sins that cry out to heaven for vengeance. And with that said, guys, we're going to wrap it up on that note. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, to follow us on Twitter, and to follow us on Threads, because we're on Threads now, too. Yeah, we're keeping it trendy here at Red Top. We also are on TikTok. And you also need to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notifications bell so you always know when we're dropping new content. And, if you really want to, not defraud the show of Red Top Report, just watch us for free and exploit us, you disgusting proletariat, or you disgusting bourgeoisie scum. You need to give us your money.
It's not enough. Look, I'm adding it up. Okay, then I minus the taxes. I'm quitting. I don't want to go. What's the point in working for that?
And you can give us your money by going to buymeacoffee.com. That's right, buymeacoffee.com. You can do a single donation, or you could do a Joe for Joe monthly donation for only $5 a month. Click on that link in the description. And with that said, guys, that's all we're going to have for this episode. God bless you.